Hey, welcome back to my channel. I want to take a moment and wish you guys a happy new year. So in today's video I will be doing a Dollar Tree rope basket, and what you'll need for nautical ropes, 2 cotton ropes, your scissors, glue gun, and your bucket, of course. So what I'm doing here, I am just removing separating the rope. I am also removing the handles. This is optional. You can keep the handles or you can remove them. I chose to take them off. You can also start roping from the bottom of the bucket. I chose to start at the sides. So I'm a bit off focus with the camera, but what I'm doing, I am gluing down the edge of the rope, or one end of the rope, on the edge of the bucket, and I am making sure that I am putting enough hot glue to keep the rope in place. It is very important at the start to make sure that the rope is intact, so you apply as much hot glue as you can. Being careful also not to burn yourself. I did that quite a few times. So I went around the first layer of the rope, and then going around for the second time. You don't need to put that much hot glue there. Just make sure you're using it in selected areas just to keep the rope in place. So I was done with one rope, and then I made sure to secure the end of that rope before I start with the next. Now, if you pay close attention to the rope, you can realize that, or you can notice that they are different. So that's something that you would need to pay close attention to when purchasing your rope, because all the ropes at the Dollar Tree are not the same. So I am now roping the second rope, and I am going around just applying enough hot glue to keep it in place. Another thing I want to mention also is I chose not to spray the bucket. You can spray the bucket just to make sure that the color is not peeping through, but I chose to leave it as is because I wanted it that way. So now I am taking my cotton rope, and what I did, I separated the rope. It comes in 3 pieces. So I separated the rope, and I'm going to be using each separately. So I am roping around, just applying enough hot glue in areas to keep it. Also making sure that I am just pushing down on the rope to close any opening for the bucket to be peeping through. So I went around with the 3 pieces of rope for the cotton rope. And when I was done with that, I then took a third nautical rope, and I went around also. Now if you look closely, you can see that the second rope is different from the first, and this third one is also different. So it's going to be 3 different ropes. So I'm going around with the third rope, and I will do that until that one is completed. Just making sure that I am, applying enough hot glue in areas, some areas, just to keep it in place. And then I was done with that, and I am going to be taking the 4th piece of rope and applying that to the bucket. I'm a little off focus for the camera because the bucket is huge and the working space is kind of small, so I did not realize that I was off focus. So I was done applying the 4th rope. Now I am going to apply the cotton rope. Now this one I did not open. I left it as is because I wanted the fullness at the top. So I went around and I glued it carefully, because it's at the top, you know, you want to make sure that that's in place. I'm just applying enough hot glue on the edges to keep that in place. Now another thing you could also do, you could choose to add a piece of fabric on the inside. I chose to leave it as that, like that, but you can add a fabric. The Dollar Tree sells pillowcases that you can add, and when you're adding that, what you need to do is to make sure you add it first before you add the last piece of rope, so that way you can fold it over on the edges and then glue down the rope on top of it. When I was done wrapping the rope around, I cut off the excess and I glued that down to keep it intact. So now I'm done with the basket. I am going to set that aside and move on to the next step. Just making sure that the edges and all the loose ends are glued down properly. So what I'm doing, I'm going to be making petals or flowers. So I am just tracing out circles from this piece of cereal box. I am going to cut those out, trim them down, and then use them as the center for the petals I'll be making. So I measured out 3.5 inches from this roll of jute that I got from the Dollar Tree. I am just cutting and measuring and cutting out the 3.5 pieces. So then I took each piece, I folded it, glued the ends together, and set them aside until I had maybe 18 petals. As many as you want to do, that's optional and up to you. I did 18 for this, and I went ahead also off camera and made 4 of the petal roses, and these I was making just to cover up where the ropes joined on the bucket. Trimming down the circles, and then I'm just adding the petals. You want to make sure that you're adding it to the colored section of the cardboard, and you apply your hot glue and paste them down. Then you use the balance that you have and fill up the empty spaces. So I went around and I applied until I had enough for the first layer. So that gave me 8 pieces for the first layer. Guys, if this is your first time on my channel, welcome. I do appreciate you coming. Feel free to subscribe, like, and hit that notification bell so that you'll be notified every time I upload a video. So I'm laying down all the petals on top of each other and in between each other, just making sure that I am getting enough to cover the spaces that I have there. Then when I was done with that, I took a second piece and placed that on top of it. Now I got this garland bead from Michael's a few years ago, and the intention was to use it for jewelry, but I wanted something else on this cardboard, so I decided to add some yarn from the Dollar Tree, of course, just before I apply the bead. So I took the yarn and I glued that down in circles, as you can see I'm doing here, just to cover up the center of the cardboard and to hide that before I actually glued the bead on top. Now this step is optional, you don't have to do it. I just felt like doing it because the color of the color of the yarn and the bead matches the bucket, so I took it a step further. So I trimmed them down, and when I was done off camera, I made 4 of them. Now, what I am going to be doing next, take it a step further and make some tassels. So for the tassel, I wrapped it around 15 times. I had this leftover yarn that I used for another DIY. I'm gonna link that at the top. You can see that my boho wall hanging DIY. So what I'm doing here, I am just taking the yarn, pull that through, tie a knot at the top to secure it, and then I will remove it and cut it off. As usual, this is optional. You don't have to. I mean, if you want to, you can. I just felt like taking it a step further. So now I'm ready to apply them to the bucket. So what I did, I kind of laid them down in place first to see how I wanted to glue them on before I actually did. I know that I needed to cover up where the ends of the rope meet, but I also wanted to do it in a way where it creates a design. So I took the petals and I applied them or covered them, placed them down on top of the end of the rope just to cover that, and I did 2 on either side. So when I was done adding the flowers, I am now going to add the tassels. But before I did that, I went a step further as usual and decided to add some beads. So I took these wooden beads that I had from another project. So what I did, I selected a few of the largest beads from the pack. I wrapped a piece of tape around the end of the yarn, and I used a skewer to feed the yarn through the beads. Now you can choose to use the beads or not use the beads, whatever you choose to do, that's fine. It's according to your taste, but I wanted just to give it a little bit more flair, so I went ahead and did that. Then before I added the tassel, I took a rope to replace the handle that I took off, and I am just going to glue that down on the sides to make the handle a little thicker. You can either double the rope or leave it as is. I just felt that it was okay as is because where I'll be using, I won't need to be moving it around or lifting anything heavy inside. So there you have it, guys. I hope you enjoyed this project, two-toned rope basket using items from the Dollar Tree. Feel free to like, share, and subscribe to my channel, and I will catch you in my next one. Bye.